Get up to speed with all the day's sports. Don't miss Sports Day tonight at 6:30 on the BBC News channel and again at 7:30.
The price of our freedom is to have a greater degree of monitoring than maybe we've been accustomed to in the past.
Filling out my tax return is one of the worst experiences that I've ever had in my life. And I'm sorry to sound dramatic, but it's so complicated.
Someone has been told somewhere, get out there, get a journalist into a pub and give him an exclusive and make people feel happy about it.
The Papers, every night at 10:30 and 11:30 on the BBC News channel.
BBC One opens the doors to one of the country's most extraordinary estates.
I think it's an eccentric place full of eccentrics.
But with two lords under one roof, tensions are rising.
I try not to do anything to irritate them.
Monogamy wasn't ever going to work for me.
There's no point having anything if you don't enjoy it.
I would have said to you, you got off to the best start.
Steady, not all of it's going to go smoothly.
All Change at Longleat starts Monday at 9 on BBC One.
This is BBC News at 1 o'clock. I'm Jane Hill, live at Westminster, as Jeremy Corbyn is elected Labour leader.
251.
He took nearly 60% of the vote in the first round.
Let us be a force for change in the world, a force for humanity in the world, a force for peace in the world, and a force that recognises we cannot go on like this, with grotesque levels of global inequality, grotesque threats to our environment all around the world, without the rich and powerful governments stepping up to the plate to make sure our world becomes safer and better.
Tom Watson is elected as the party's deputy leader and pledges his full support for Jeremy Corbyn. The former leader, Ed Miliband, has just given his reaction to the result.
Well, I congratulate Jeremy Corbyn on a very clear victory in the Labour leadership election. I congratulate Tom Watson as having been elected as deputy leader. I'll be offering Jeremy Corbyn my support, and I hope people across the party do so too.
59%.
And the news has been greeted with jubilation by supporters around the country. We'll bring you all the details in the next few minutes and look at the challenges ahead for the new Labour leader. A very good afternoon from the Queen Elizabeth Conference Centre near Westminster, the scene of some extraordinary moments in the last couple of hours. The left-wing MP Jeremy Corbyn has been named the new leader of the Labour Party. The 66-year-old, who was the 500-to-1 outsider when he entered the contest, secured very nearly 60% of the vote. In his victory speech in the hall here behind me, Jeremy Corbyn told MPs and party members that it is time for them to unite. And let's just take a look at the overall results. Jeremy Corbyn, as we say, 59.5% of the vote. Andy Burnham came second with just 19%. Yvette Cooper a little behind him on 17%, and Liz Kendall finishing last with 4.5% of the vote. And it is the breakdown of these votes that are so interesting as well. Jeremy Corbyn, first place in every voting category, therefore winning support from party members, from the registered supporters and from the affiliated supporters. The deputy, Tom Watson, won his contest in the third round. The Shadow Health Minister, Jamie Reid, tendered his resignation from the Shadow Cabinet. And the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, Rachel Reeves, has announced that she will return to the backbenches when she comes back to work after her period of maternity leave. Well, we'll begin this hour with this report from our political correspondent, Robin Brandt. His report does contain flash photography.
His white hair just visible amidst the scrum. This is what you call a confident arrival for Jeremy Corbyn. With some of his supporters singing the red flag, the anthem of traditional Labour, the man some call simply JC was propelled into the conference centre. When the result came, it was that surprise that no one had predicted when the contest began. And the scale of the victory was staggering.
Jeremy Corbyn, 251,000.
He obliterated the others, winning in the first round by a huge margin. So, for the first time as leader of the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn started by
thanking everyone who took part in this election, this huge democratic exercise of more than 500,000 people all across this country. It showed our party and our movement passionate, democratic, diverse, united and absolutely determined in our quest for a decent and better society that is possible for all.
He was conciliatory, genuinely praising the defeated candidates, perhaps a sign he wants to reach out. Then he turned to his core message.
We don't have to be unequal. It doesn't have to be unfair. Poverty isn't inevitable. Things
it's not inevitable.
And they will.
Poverty is not
Thank
inevitable.
You very much.
Thank you.
So, who is Jeremy Corbyn?
Chairman.
A veteran MP of 32 years, he looks now as he did back then. He spent decades on the periphery of his party, associating with controversial causes, including the IRA and the Palestinian group Hamas. Now, 66 years old, he's a vegetarian who's never far from his bike. So, Saturday the 12th of September 2015, the day the Labour Party got a new leader it never ever expected to get, and the day it got a leader that the vast majority of its MPs don't support. There'll be euphoria for Team Corbyn, but once that's passed, the big challenge is now keeping Labour together. The man who used to be Labour leader was quick to offer his support, but there was a warning too.
Our party is a broad church, always has been, always will be, and the task of the leader is to reach all parts of that movement, and I believe that's what Jeremy should do.
I think obviously he and Tom and the new leadership team will now want to be reaching out across the country to the public, because that's what this has now got to be about. It's not just our debate within the party that we've had for the last few months, but about the country as well.
He'll savour the moment he never thought would happen, the moment some of his critics hoped they would never see. Now the challenge for Jeremy Corbyn is, can he make the group hug last? Can he keep Labour together? Robin Brandt, BBC News, Westminster.
Well, let's ask the General Secretary of Unison, Dave Prentice, who is here with me. The second biggest union, of course, 1.3 million members, I think, and you have been smiling throughout the time we've been chatting here.
Yeah, it's a great day, really great day. We came out of the last election in quite a bad way. Only 3.5 months since then, and today we're electing Jeremy as our leader. Tremendous result, giving a message of hope that had almost been extinguished over the last 5 years, that we could hope that there are alternatives, that we can have that fairer society that we believe in, that everybody believes in, and that we don't have to have all of these restrictions that are taking place, and very few people at the top doing exceptionally well, but the rest of us still paying the price of the failure of the banks.
I mean, do you think he, on a personal level, is actually pretty shocked by this? Because he was persuaded to come into this competition, wasn't he?
I think he's grown throughout it. I've spoken on platforms with him. I've been at the hustings when he's been there. He brings a different dimension. I'm very friendly with the other people, other candidates, and they got massive rounds of applause today. But he stood out. People want to have a vision. They want a political party that's got vision, not just concerned about the mechanics. They want a party that's honest and says, we don't believe in privatisation, rather than saying we believe in less privatisation. They want a party that says that we don't believe in these public service job cuts, instead of a party that says, oh, we don't believe that they should be so quick, these job cuts. What he's doing is giving a real alternative that people can stand behind, and that is what they want more than anything. They've been battered, they've been beaten, and they really do want to believe that, that there is vision, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and that is what Jeremy is giving them.
I mean, the votes suggest that is what people want. One of the big challenges facing him is already he has had a Shadow Health Minister resign, he's had Rachel Reeves, a big hitter, say, when I come back I'm going to sit on the back benches. I mean, that is not the sort of message that the party wants sending out, is it?
But people always do that. Some people will come in, some people will go out. But as Jeremy said, this is a time to pull together. And it's an opportunity to look at the heart and the soul of the Labour Party, what it stands for, where it's going, what its beliefs are. And some people may find that difficult and they may not want to be in the shadow cabinet. But what Jeremy is saying, and he said it throughout, that half of the people in the shadow cabinet will be women. And I believe that the women who come in, and I do hope that Yvette does become part of the shadow cabinet, but the women that do come in will take our party forward, and that we will be in a position where we can win the next election. Jeremy can win that election because he is speaking on behalf of the millions of people who believe that they do not have a voice now in our society.
Very, very quick final thought, because I know you're off to the TUC conference now, and I'm assuming Jeremy Corbyn is going to be addressing your conference. What do you want to hear?
Well, I'd like him to say the very things he's been saying throughout, what he believes in. He's the first leader of the Labour Party, I believe, who's talked about trade unions and the role, and positive role that they can play. Other leaders have been scared of even mentioning them. So times are changing. This is a game changer, and Labour can win because of it.
Dave Prentice, thanks very much for being with us. I'll let you head off to Brighton. Thank you very much indeed. Dave Prentice, General Secretary of Unison, looking a very happy man. Just while I was talking to Dave Prentice, actually news coming through that Tristram Hunt has just announced that he will sit only on the back benches as well. So that's Tristram Hunt and Rachel Reeves who are saying that, and the Shadow Health Minister Jamie Reid resigning from that particular post as well in the wake of Jeremy Corbyn's success. I think we might be able to talk to our chief political correspondent Vicky Young, because Vicky is at the front of this conference centre, the Queen Elizabeth Conference Centre, our political correspondent, out and about. Certainly there were a lot of crowds earlier, Vicky. Just give us a sense of what's happening there.
Yeah, that's right, and they're still here waiting to see whether Jeremy Corbyn, the new leader of the Labour Party, will come through that door. Lots of the people here are supporting Jeremy Corbyn, but it has to be said that in that room, in that hall, that was a very divided room, because of course many MPs do not support Jeremy Corbyn's vision. I've been speaking to several of them just outside the hall after that result. Many of them have started to say that they won't serve in a Jeremy Corbyn shadow cabinet. I spoke to Rachel Reeves. She told me that Jeremy Corbyn has a huge mandate. That victory was much bigger than most people would have anticipated. She says she wishes him well, but she says he needs to surround himself and have a shadow cabinet that shares his vision, and she doesn't share that vision. So when she comes back from maternity leave in January, she will be on the backbenches. She says she will take the fight to the Tories, but she says there are other ways to do that than by sitting in the shadow cabinet. I think we will have more and more of the present shadow cabinet deciding to do that. Others say, well, look, they would serve if Jeremy Corbyn changes his views on things like Trident, for example. But they say, how can they possibly sit in a shadow cabinet with collective responsibility when they just don't agree on such major issues? So this is the big issue now for the Parliamentary Labour Party. They seem to be very out of step with the Labour Party grassroots, who've just voted in such huge numbers for Jeremy Corbyn. They, the MPs, of course, think that Jeremy Corbyn is out of step with the British electorate, who have, of course, just voted in a majority Conservative government.
Vicky, thank you for now. Vicky Young, we will talk more about that perhaps when Jeremy Corbyn emerges. Let's just show you the scene again, not too far away from where we are here. I think just out in Parliament Square in Westminster, because there is a rally taking place today, was always planned to take place today, in support of refugees. That's been the story, of course, that has dominated until today for the last few weeks. Jeremy Corbyn, in fact, in his victory speech, paying tribute to Yvette Cooper, one of those he beat, saying that he really respected and admired all the work that she had been doing around the subject of refugees. And there is a rally taking place in Parliament Square, and we believe Jeremy Corbyn might appear at that rally a little bit later. I haven't been given an official number from the police in terms of attendance, but certainly from the pictures I'm looking at there, it looks a pretty sizable turnout. We'll perhaps see whether we can get exact figures for you, but that is just a flavour of what is happening just a little way away from here in Parliament Square. While we look at these pictures, I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by the leader of the Scottish Labour Party, Kezia Dugdale, relatively recently elected yourself, so very good to see you, and now a national leader of your party elected on an overwhelming mandate.
Absolutely, it's good news. 60% of the vote, that's a real mandate for change. Just a few weeks ago I was elected with a big mandate in Scotland, and together with Jeremy I'm going to change the fortunes of the Scottish Labour Party, so I'm excited about the future.
You're confident and happy that you can work with him, because the initial music from your camp was not positive about Jeremy Corbyn.
I've always said I'd be delighted to work with any one of the 4 leadership candidates. I spoke to Jeremy immediately after the result this afternoon. I'm going to welcome him to Scotland in the next few days, and together we're going to turn around the fortunes of the Scottish Labour Party. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about getting back in Scotland to talking about the real issues that matter to people, like closing the gap between the richest kids and the poorest kids in our schools, for example, the big problems we face in our NHS and in our police. These are issues that I know Jeremy will be side by side with me on, and that's good news for people in Scotland.
You say you just spoke to him, but what did he say? What was he saying to you?
Well, I congratulated him. He's delighted, obviously. He's thrilled.
Is he shocked?
No, he was very calm, actually. This is a man on a mission. He knows what he wants to do, and he is going to join that rally up the road shortly. And he's spoken a lot about the refugee crisis in the last few days, and I share his views on that particular issue. We can't take our eye off the ball and let David Cameron away with it once again. But when we get back to the House of Commons next week, David Cameron's about to do 2 big things which are damaging for Scotland: the trade union bill, and also around the issue of welfare reform and tax credits. And I look forward to supporting what Jeremy Corbyn's going to do there, standing on the side of working people, working together for a fairer, more equal Scotland.
But there will be people who think actually Jeremy Corbyn could be hugely beneficial for Labour in Scotland, because what a wipeout, as we know, at the general election. So many people voting SNP, which stood on an anti-austerity platform, precisely the kind of language that Jeremy Corbyn uses. Is your sense that actually, from your personal perspective there in Scotland, he could be really beneficial to you?
I've heard this argument a lot in the last few days, that having Jeremy Corbyn will move the Labour Party to the left, and that's good for us in Scotland. That accepts that the SNP are a left-wing party, which I completely refute. I can't point to a single progressive policy that the SNP have. They've been in charge of our education system in Scotland for 8 years, yet the gap between the richest pupils and the rest is as stubborn and as wide as it has ever been before. So what we need to do in Scotland is to appeal to people who voted both yes and no in last year's referendum. It's the anniversary of that referendum this week. That issue is very much in our past. It's time to get on with using the powers of the Scottish Parliament to build a fairer, more equal society, and I know that I stand with Jeremy Corbyn in doing just that.
All right, Kezia Dugdale, for now, thanks very much for joining us, the leader of the Labour Party in Scotland, Kezia Dugdale there. And if you are just joining us, well, my goodness, what a remarkable lunchtime it has been. Jeremy Corbyn elected with very nearly 60% of the vote. Tom Watson is to be the new deputy leader of the Labour Party. And those, again, the scenes inside the hall behind me here at the Queen Elizabeth Conference Centre when that result was announced. I've been speaking to Tom Watson, pledging to work closely with Jeremy Corbyn. Both men repeatedly using the word unite, uniting the party. And that perhaps is one of the challenges ahead because of the news that has been filtering out already in the last little while. The news that Rachel Reeves has said she will return to the back back benches when she comes back to work in January after maternity leave. The news that Tristram Hunt has said he will sit on the back benches, and the immediate resignation of the Shadow Health Minister Jamie Reid as well. Just a sense of the challenges that now face Jeremy Corbyn as leader. Let's discuss those challenges with the Times columnist Jenny Russell, who has joined me, and Owen Jones from The Guardian, of course a prominent Jeremy Corbyn supporter. Welcome to both of you. It is an overwhelming mandate, Owen. It's also a huge challenge.
To say the least, absolutely. I mean, that was the easy bit, wasn't it? And this is, we should just take a step back and think, this is, I'd say, the biggest against all odds victory in British political history. It's difficult to think of anything that compares. He was 200 to 1, a backbencher if you had heard of before the contest began, and now in the most open democratic contest ever had in Labour's history, he's won decisively. But now he's going to face overwhelming hostility from the media. He will face a challenge in terms of building unity in terms of the parliamentary Labour Party. That's why he has to democratise policy, so policy is developed in a far broader base. But also, what drives people on the left above all else is often passionate. What happens to people at the bottom of society? The poorest, homeless people, people low-paid workers, people who can't get an affordable home. But to win, you've got to build a broad coalition, and that means he has to build on what he talked about during his campaign about middle-income and middle-class people. How do you build council housing, but also extend home ownership to younger people who are denied that at the moment? How do you reach out to self-employed people who lack pensions and paid sick leave and so on? He's been talking about that in the campaign, so now as well as talking about the real issues of social injustice that fuel his kind of beliefs, he's got to as well build a broad coalition of middle-income, middle-class people and low-income people, and that's the big challenge ahead.
Jenny Russell, is he going to come under a lot of attack now from the media? Is that a fair point?
Oh yes, it's already started. I mean, all the people who say it's a 1980s throwback, and of course they would, because he's challenged all the conventions. But I think he's been a really good thing for the Labour Party, because I think it's a fantasy to think that any of the other three candidates were going to win the next election with their platforms. They weren't. I mean, they were so dull that even people like me turning up to hustings early on and listening to them were sitting there thinking, I've got a headache. You know, this is just a whole lot of robotics, robo-speak, I don't know what it means, it's cliched, it doesn't relate to real life. And Jeremy came in and said, actually, we don't have to accept the way that we've been told the world operates. I think that the economy could run in a completely different way, and we could nationalise the railways. And I'm not saying I agree with Jeremy's policies, and I don't think the British public necessarily agree with them, but he came in saying, there is a debate to be had. We don't have to accept the world as it's been set out before us. And that is what people have responded to all over the country. And what it's done is that it's forced the others to raise their game. You would never have had Yvette Cooper coming out and suddenly looking so much like a leader as she did in the last 10 days without Jeremy forcing her out of her dreary comfort zone. She spent 15 years in the Labour Party thinking, I must be careful not to say the wrong thing. And now, at last, the moderate left has had to say to itself, if we are going to survive, if anyone is going to vote for us as anything other than a pale version of the Tory party, we have got to come up with coherent reasons to exist. Because all they had to offer at the last election was basically, we're slightly nicer and slightly less competent than the other lot, vote for us. Now, that wasn't enough then, it wouldn't be enough at the next election. They're going to do a lot of thinking in the next 2 years, because they're going to have to combat Corbyn's appeal.
So much more we could discuss. Apologies that we can't any longer. Jenny Russell, Owen Jones, very, very many thanks for being with us. Thank you very much indeed. Much more to debate, all those themes that both Owen and Jenny are touching on there. We must just, right now, just go back to that refugee march in central London, because I think the numbers are swelling there. Let's just find out what is happening. Our correspondent Nick Beak is there. Nick.
There's thousands of people have now descended on central London. You can still see they keep on coming. People are coming up from the nearest tube station here, and they're making their way down Park Lane, so right in the heart of London. And I've just been told in the last few moments, which has now set off. These are people saying they're in solidarity with those Syrian refugees. Probably about 200 people gathered for that announcement that Jeremy Corbyn had been elected the leader of the Labour Party at Speaker's Corner. Just a short distance over here, I can show you I think they say the crowd gathered, joined by not parts of the country.
Yeah, what's next? What's next?
Prime Minister, more refugees.
Well, I do apologise. We seem to have a problem with the line there, clearly, to Nick Beake at that rally, not far away from here in Parliament Square. We'll try and go back there because we did get a sense that there's an awful lot of people there, and we know that Jeremy Corbyn is going to be going to that rally in the not too distant future, so we will keep an eye on that. Apologies, we'll try and re-establish, get a clear line there to our correspondent Nick Beake. With the time at 22 minutes past 1. We will just take a pause for a few moments. Plenty more to discuss here at Westminster, fear not. But if you'd like just a little break from it, there's plenty to discuss in the world of sport, I'm sure. Let's get the latest on all of that. Mike Bushell can tell us the latest. Hi, Mike.
Well, good afternoon. Thanks very much. The Premier League is back, and back with a bang after the international break. In the early kick-off at least, Everton are taking on Chelsea at Goodison Park with a lot of focus beforehand on defender John Stones, who stayed at Everton despite transfer window interest from Chelsea. What a half it's been. Dominated, though, not by Stones, but by the Scottish midfielder, his teammate. Stephen Naismith, who came off the bench in that first half. It's still ongoing the first half, actually, and has scored twice to really continue Chelsea's wobbly start to the season. Having said that, though, with Naismith only on the field because of an injury to Mohamed Besic, in the last few minutes, Nemanja Matic has just pulled one back from the edge of the area. Great strike for Chelsea, so it's now Everton 2, Chelsea 1, with around 8 minutes to go until